All right, let's start looking at some more of the features of the graphs a little more in detail, and also looking at them more in terms of how can we determine some of these things without necessarily doing the graph first, or even without the graph in available to us. So what this is asking us here in this problem is find the axis of symmetry, vertex, and y-intercept, then graph it. All right, so they give us this equation, y equals 2x squared plus 4x minus 3. And then if you look in the bottom left of the screen, you'll see that I got this weird little thing written down, x equals negative b over 2a. What this is, all right, is this is a formula for us to find your axis of symmetry. All right, and you notice it's x equals something, and that makes sense, right? Because your axis of symmetry is always a vertical line going up and down, so it would have to be x equals something, right? So that totally stands to reason that this could possibly be that. So let's see how this works. Let's mess around with this. So let's take our equation. All right, I'm going to switch colors here. I'm going to go to yellow, I think. And so what this says is I'm going to go x equals, and then you got to remember what's a, what's b, what's c, right? Well, basically, if you have your equation written out in the correct form, it will always be y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, right? So your b, which is the first part of your equation right here, so we got this equation, your b is going to be this number right here, right? Bx, it's the number in front of the x. So we're going to put negative 4 because it's negative b is what you want. So you want the opposite of whatever there is. So if it's positive, it becomes negative. If it's negative, it will become positive. And then it's 2 times a. So 2 times, and then a is 2. So this gives you negative 4 over 4. So my equation is x equals negative 1. And this is my line of symmetry, all right? And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rid of this and this. I want to make sure I don't get rid of my line here. Okay, so I'm gonna put up my line of symmetry, and I'm gonna see if I can get it to go straight. All right, and that's my line of symmetry. Okay, we don't have to have it there, but it's good to know where it is. And then it says find the vertex. Well, if you know what the vertex is going to be somewhere on this line. We just don't know where. So if we know what the line of symmetry is, I know the vertex is going to be where it intersects this line. And where it intersects this line is going to be basically where these meet. So all you have to do is take this x equals negative 1, and wherever you see x in this equation, we're going to substitute that in. So I'm going to do this in a different color. Let's do this in this green. I'm going to go y equals 2, and instead of writing x, I'm going to write negative 1. So 2 times negative 1 squared plus 4 times negative 1. I'm just substituting in minus 3. And then let's simplify that. So negative 1 squared is 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. And then you have minus 3. All right, so 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Negative 2 and negative 3 equal negative 5. So that means my vertex is going to be, I'm going to write this down up here. I'm going to say vertex is going to be the point 1, negative 5. Okay, and so let's find that. So here's 1 right here. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. Put our point. There is our vertex. All right, and now to find the y-intercept, all right, think about what the y-intercept is. The y-intercept is this next line right over here, right? It's where it crosses the y-axis. And there's a really easy way to find on these. So if you want to figure out where it crosses the y-axis, you would look at that and say, well, what is my x-coordinate when it crosses this line? Well, your x-coordinate when it crosses that line is 0. So you just go into your equation, and we'll do that right here, and we'll do it in another color. Let's do it in blue. Is we're going to go y equals, and then we're going to put 0 in wherever we see an x. So 2 times 0 squared plus 4 times 0 minus 3. Well, what happens is if you multiply anything by 0, it cancels out. It gets rid of it. So you basically wind up with y equals negative 3. So your y-intercept is going to be negative 3. So your y-intercept would be the point 0, negative 3. And then because you know this is a quadratic equation, you know that it's going to the line of symmetry. So whatever you have over here is going to be mirrored over here. So you're going to have a point here. So you have enough at this point to draw a quadratic function. And that's kind of really all there is to this, is just using that negative b over 2a equation to do this. All right. I have another example here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to help you really quick find the axis of symmetry, the vertex, and the y-intercept. And we are not going to graph it in the interest of keeping this kind of short. So let's find our axis of symmetry first. All right. So my axis of symmetry is x equals negative b over 2a. So let's put in our numbers. So negative b would be negative 6, and then 2, and then a is negative 3. Well, that's going to give me negative 6 over negative 6. So my axis of symmetry, again, is x equals 1, which seems to be a thing for these, right? So my axis of symmetry would be basically this line right here. All right? Then for my vertex, right? Or I think I did vertex in green, right? For my vertex, you're going to take this value and put it into the equation. So you're going to have y equals negative 3 times 1 squared plus 6 times 1 minus 5. So you'd get negative 3, because 1 squared is 1, plus 6 minus 5. Well, 6 minus 5 is 1, and 1 and negative 3 is negative 2. So your vertex is going to be the point 1, negative 2. So we're going to go to 1, negative 2, and we're going to put a point, and that's our vertex. And now it's kind of helpful to know that when you look at these, it's pretty easy to tell if they're pointing upward or downward. And what you look at is you look at the sign in front of your A. Your A is always the one that tells you what you're doing and where your sign's going to be and what, sorry, that made no sense. It tells you what direction this is going in. If it's positive, that means it's opening up like that, right? And if it's negative, that means it's opening down like that. Well, this is negative, right? So it is going to be opening downward. And then so all we need to do to figure out how this works is let's switch over and figure out what our y-intercept is. So my y-intercept is going to be where x is 0. So let's rewrite this as y equals negative 3 times 0 squared plus 6 times 0 minus 5. So these cancel, and your y-intercept is negative 5. Generally speaking, your y-intercept is just this c term, because that's what happens when you put 0 in for everything. So if you can kind of remember that little trick, that will help you out. So my y-intercept is negative 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go down here. You got this, and then you can have something that sort of looks like that. I said I wasn't going to graph it, but I lied. So I hope this helps. This isn't super complicated. Really the only thing you got to remember is that vertex formula, which is x equals negative b over 2a. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Just kind of understanding what a y-intercept is where your x is 0. And that your vertex is, of course, going to lie on your axis of symmetry.